good evening. Today, the COVID Cabinet Committee has approved a number of measures that constitute a careful and prudent plan to remove Alberta's public health restrictions and move on from a widespread pandemic response to get our lives back to normal. It is clear that we passed the peak of Omicron infections about 3 weeks ago and are now seeing the result as COVID-related hospital admissions are declining. This is good news and broadly reflects the experience of other jurisdictions around the world when it comes to the Omicron variant. That's why countries like England, Scotland, Ireland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, South Africa, Finland, and many others have lifted all or almost all public health restrictions in recent weeks. It's also why a growing number of states across the United States have also announced the lifting of most public health measures, including mask mandates, such as the states of California, Connecticut, Delaware, and New Jersey just in recent days. I note that the provinces of Saskatchewan and Quebec have followed suit with their own announcements earlier today. In other words, with what we know now about the virus and the tools we have to fight it, the threat of COVID-19 to public health is no longer outweighs the hugely damaging impact of health restrictions on our society, on people's mental health, on their emotional well-being, on our broader social health. So now is the time to begin learning to live with COVID. These restrictions have led to terrible division, even amongst families and friends, and inflamed sometimes tensions in our communities and neighborhoods. They've disrupted and even destroyed so many livelihoods. We will never know, we'll never be able to do a full accounting of the extent of the pain and hardship that restrictions have caused. But we do know some things. We know we have seen in Alberta and across the developed world a significant increase in mental and emotional health challenges amongst children and adolescents, for example. We have seen an increase in domestic violence. We have seen the failure of many businesses, and of course, at the beginning of the pandemic, record high unemployment. And at a time when the world should be wide open and full of possibility and hopefulness, COVID and the restrictions associated with it have robbed thousands of young children with the simple joys of just being a kid. I was speaking to a young father the other day who told me that his 10-year-old daughter had spent 20% of her life under COVID health restrictions. We cannot remain at a heightened state of emergency forever. We have to begin to heal. And so Alberta will move on. Our plan will involve 3 steps, starting with easing restrictions on activities and situations that have been shown to be lower risk throughout the pandemic. The first starts with children and youth. Step 1 will remove almost all restrictions affecting children, including removing the mask mandate for all K-12 students effective this weekend. Outside of the school setting, kids 12 and under will now be exempt from the general mask mandate that will continue to apply in indoor settings for approximately 3 weeks to come. Our current target date for phase 2 is March the 1st, at which point we plan to lift most remaining restrictions, including the indoor mask mandate, the requirement to work from home, and remaining capacity limits. We would then proceed to stage 3, which would be to eliminate all remaining public health measures at that point. So let me add an important caveat. If the current trends reverse themselves, and if we see a significant and sustained increase in pressure on our hospitals, we may have to pause some of these measures. But we are determined to get our life back to normal, doing so in a way that ensures that a hospital bed is there for everyone who needs one.
I think it's a right for people to have bad health care.